On a beautiful Saturday afternoon in late February, I was driving around the Isle of Bute. It was the 25th of February actually, the last full day but one of my parish ministry. I was tying up as many things as I could before, in just over a day's time, at the stroke of midnight, like Cinderella, I'd revert to what I'd been before all this began. 12 years previously, 41 years previously. Through the bare branches and their twigs, I watched the blue sky, fixed and cold as fluffy white clouds scudded across it. I found myself thinking that it looked like the beginning of an art house movie, one of those that opens with an unexplained long take of scenery slipping by, shot from a car being driven by somebody just out of shot, the sparsest of soundtrack, no music, just road noise. Oh, and the occasional observation by the driver perhaps, just musing to himself, or perhaps supplemented by a voiceover. So I thought, I'll make it. Here it is. It's my film. I can be pretentious if I want. These were important days for me because they were a cusp, the point at which my life would change utterly. I've had 4 such days in the course of my life. In chronological order, the day I was ordained, the day I got married, the day I became a father, the day I became the father of a daughter. The latter 3 changed me utterly, metaphysically. Carolyn, Simon, Hannah. They expanded who I am. They're analogous to birth, rebirth perhaps. The first one, ordination, didn't. It was something to do with what I'd always been, what it was meant to be, the outplaying of who I was and am, a constant, unanswered asking of the question, who am I? In one way, an ecclesiastical, churchy way, it marked the beginning of that cluster of connections, functions and duties and expectations that come under the rubric of a ministry. What I was about to relinquish wasn't part of me. It had framed how I lived being me for 4 decades, and it had drawn out and shaped the material of my existence in irreversible ways, and that shaping would remain. There was, it turned out, nothing instantaneous about my relinquishing of this. This cusp wasn't the severing at midnight of my ties with an old identity. It was a moment, but a moment smeared out over a few days, weeks in fact, truth be told. Things were slipping away like an ebbing tide, revealing what would remain. I felt that really strongly as I drove around Bute on that penultimate day. There, you knew I wouldn't be able to stick to the rumble of tyres as my soundtrack. There's really not music in my head. A minor has always presented itself synesthesically to me as the pale, distant blue of the sky, oddly flecked by passing accidentals, hinting at other keys, with thin streaks of brown and yellow, wisps of black and red. Saturday was very much an A minor day. I've heard a couple of people speak of there being two kinds of people. Well, lots of people speak of there being two kinds of people, but only two have done it along this line of division. My father, the wise old elder in Llwyngoryl in my first charge, who was probably younger than I am now when he died. They divided people into two categories on the basis of how they thought about eternity. There are those who think of eternity in terms of the mountains, those who think of eternity in terms of the sea, those who think of eternity as zenith, and those who think of eternity in terms of horizon, those who think of eternity and therefore by implication God as up there, those who think of eternity and by implication God as out there. You may want to quibble, to say that some people don't think of God at all, or that there's no point in thinking about eternity when you have to live in the quotidian, disorganised, grubby reality of life and can't look beyond it. Well, that's a discussion to have elsewhere. This is my video. You may want to say that you don't believe in God. I do. As I say, this is my video, so, tough really. Where were we? Oh yes. People who think of eternity in terms of the mountains, people who think of eternity in terms of the sea, those who think of eternity as zenith, those who think of eternity in terms of horizon. I've always been one of the latter. Given that I'm an astronomer, you might find that odd. It's not really. I think of the galaxies and their stars, the stars and their planets as out there. A horizon to be journeyed towards, voyaged towards. And the point is, the voyage, the journey. A horizon, which remains the horizon, even as you walk towards it. You can't walk towards the zenith. And I've always thought of God as horizon, not zenith. There is a point to the journey, even if the horizon is still the horizon at each point, because the landscape changes around you as you go. Or if it's a voyage we're talking about, the seascape and its moods and its breezes and winds change. You aren't in the same place. Moving towards the horizon takes you away from where you were. A landscape to traverse, a seascape to gaze out over. Bute has been both of those things for me. A journey, certainly, and a 12-year part of my journey, and a return to somewhere that was very much a part of my childhood, a place I visited, but somewhere I never imagined I would live. An experience of space, time, transience, and of these things in relation to eternity, sub specie aeternitatis in the resonant Latin phrase. So, on this last day but one of my ministry, on Bute but also in a parish, I drove anti-clockwise around the island, remembering things that had happened, events, points in time strung out along a 12-year timeline, people, moments in people's lives, happiness, sadness, bereavement, the joining of lives, the sundering of relationships, lighter and darker shades of human experience, alternating like the shadows of spring clouds scudding across green hills pale in the still wan sunlight. It was the experience of looking out over the timescape of past, present and future, and scrutinising the horizon of eternity.